C'est toi qui attaque ou quoi, Gwen?
Yes.
Non, c'est toi.
C'est moi qui
C'est
attaque.
bon pour moi, les gars. Vous êtes en direct.
Okay. Hi guys, my name is Richard Boudia. I'm the salesman for AFS, basically, one of the salesmen at least. And let me introduce you to Gwen Le Tutour, the one and only.
I'm Gwen. I have a YouTube channel with Damien Leroy. You might have seen some of our videos. We focus mostly on teaching people how to wing foil, and then lately got into downwind subfoiling, amazing journey. So we are trying to share that as well. And I have a shop and a school in Florida, and that's mostly how I work with AFS. So I think the cool part here is I'm not sponsored by AFS, so I can say anything I want.
You can try at least.
But yeah, I'm excited to talk about the Blackbird. I've been using it for a few weeks and absolutely loving it. So yeah, excited to dive into it.
Yeah, cool. So basically, just to talk about the history of the Blackbird, it's a board that came into the AFS Advanced range, which was basically the lab of AFS working on some of the new trends, trying to push the boundaries about on what we could expect from those specific gear. And we released this one, I think, a bit more than 1 year ago, if I remember well. And at first it was the 6.2 by 21 90 liters and the 6.4 by 23 and a half, I think, and 110 liters. So those boards are still in the range. They're great boards. They were great boards already for downwinding a couple of years ago, I mean 1 year ago at least. And basically the journey of downwinding has been pretty crazy because on the SUP, I mean, because we came from a background basically where at first there was no specific downwinding board. That's the crazy part of it. It's basically like a beginning in tennis, playing with a baseball bat, basically.
Yeah, well, and I feel like we just went through that same process with winging, where when winging came around, it was just like, you know, everybody was kind of on the wrong gears. There was only one size wing and only small boards, and it was very difficult, and it made a lot of people wonder, like, is this really a legit spot?
Exactly, yeah.
And here today we see where it went, and we kind of like quickly are going through that evolution with downwind subfoiling.
Exactly. And yeah, I think the fact that you're saying that is it really a legit sport, it's like pretty much the same question that some of the guys are asking themselves now about downwinding, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things about how accessible is it going to be. Is it way over physical for me or whatever?
And also like places. I mean, I know for me that's almost the first thing I thought about when I saw downwinding was, yeah, but like, you know, I don't live in Maui. Am I gonna be able to do it? You know, I'm like mostly in Florida. And I truly didn't think it would be a possibility.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why I didn't get into it earlier. But quickly the gear has evolved, and now honestly, I've seen people downwinding on lakes, in the middle of the country, anywhere is possible, and I think that's super exciting.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest part of that success and the accessibility, the gap of accessibility from 2 years ago to now has been those lengthy boards and pretty narrow and stuff like that. So for the two first Blackbird, the 6.2 and 6.4, actually the goal was trying to make them as efficient as possible while still maintaining a pretty compact form factor, because we knew already that people would be interested into using this kind of board for several activities. So you could separate obviously subfoil downwinding to regular subfoil. Some guys are super good at subfoiling, they are not downwinding yet. Some guys are good at downwinding, they are not great at subfoiling sometimes. And also, obviously, the light wind winging has been something of those boards has been basically changing the game because of those crazy abilities to pop up the foil even in lighter winds. So those boards are, I would consider them now into the pretty much hybrid category. Don't know if you would agree, Gwen. Those ones are compact, user-friendly for different activities, without the ultra specification that really modern downwind high performance board would have basically.
Yeah, and like for sure, like the problem it's like choosing a foil. You know, you can't have it all. You can't have a foil that would be perfect for like going fast, but also a foil that would be perfect for pumping slow. So you always have to pick your priority, and that's where this board is like an all around that, yeah, you know, it's not going to be the most efficient in this size like for downwinding, but then it still works, you know, pretty good. And for winging, then you can do it all. If you are wanting like one board, that would be the closest to the most like versatile.
Exactly. And depending on the conditions also, and to add to that, depending on the size of foil that you're aiming to ride. Basically, some guys are going to aim to ride to some pretty big foil or big to average size, medium size weight, medium foil, and those guys could have a great success with those compact boards if they maintain those bigger size of foil. The further down you want to go in foil sizes, the more likely you want to ride some longer boards. So that's why we released a couple of weeks ago the new Blackbird, new sizes of Blackbird basically, with a 7.6 and a 8.0. So 7.6 by 18, 110 liters, 7.6 by 21, 120 liters, and 8.0 by 18, 115 liters, 8.0 by 20, 125 liters, and 8.0 by 22, 140 liters. So those boards are gonna basically improve the efficiency of the board and in two ways, basically allowing you to have a easier pop-up of the foil for those challenging conditions, or for some people which are gonna have less of a background into supping. They will enjoy, I think, the glide of the board that's going to be improved compared to shorter boards, basically. And also they're going to allow you to be able to ride some smaller foil, which are going to be more challenging to pop up. So you want the help of an extra glide from the board to make sure that you're going to be able to pop it up at some point. So that's one of the main factors of why we did develop those new sizes in the range, is to make sure that everybody's going to be able to find his toys in the range, whether he's going to be super lightweight aiming for something super compact, or lightweight aiming for racing. It's going to be still likely to want the longer board, longer narrower boards. We ride both of us the 8.0 by 18, 115 liters, and basically the fact that we are aiming to ride some more high performance foil makes us want to go for longer boards and narrow boards to make sure that the pop-up is still going to be easy enough, basically.
Just make sure you let me know in the comments here if the sound is better, because I saw the sound was coming from the phone. Actually, it might be coming from the camera. So tell us if it's good. But yeah, I mean, going to the 8.0 by 18 by 115, the volume on the board, I feel like, is always a question, whether you are starting or whether you are like already in it, improving. It's not an easy choice, and so to share a bit of my journey, before I was riding the 8.0 by 18 by 115, I was on a 100 liter board, and so to me, going an extra 15 liters, I was kind of like a bit worried that it would be too much. It wouldn't feel as good when flying, and it just actually blew my mind, because I felt like it was helping me take off, like you said, with smaller foils. So right away, you know, I was able to like practice. You know, I do a lot of like practicing on fly water, and I was able to like go down in size like crazy, just with that change. Yet, you know, I took the bird and rode it into like some like waves, and it still felt amazing riding, carving back and forth, pumping back out. It didn't feel, you know, too big. And so I think that's an important like point to talk about, is like the volume, because in the range we need to explain, you know, what volume is maybe like who is it good for, and really like if you are looking into the range or any downwinder board, you have to remove your what you think about volume.
Yeah, for sure.
And kind of like be open to it. And that's when I tried the 115, I was worried, and it just blew my mind. So that's volume is a big thing.
That's a great point, Gwen. So basically, volume distribution on those boards is pretty special because those boards have a recessed deck. So the volume on the thickness between your feet and your foil, even on the 140 liters, is actually pretty thin. Thinner compared to a lot of other brand type of shape. The reason why is because of the recessed deck, basically. So we are allowed to put some volume where the feet are going to be not positioning, basically, and that allows us to make the board as thin as possible around the standing area. And there's 2 points that are going to be interesting doing it this way. Obviously, you're getting a better stability on the board because your feet are going to get closer to the water. That's a big aspect, and you're going to have a lot of more precision for the piloting the foil. Also, because the distance between your feet and your foil is going to be way thinner. So it's basically you could have a 150 meters board that they're going to have the feeling of an 85 liter board, basically, in a way. What you want is to release as much as possible the whole physicality of the pop-up to make sure that you could concentrate yourself on the whole pumping, trajectories and stuff like that for the whole downwinding thing. So I think a lot of riders that used to downwind a couple of years ago have changed their mind dramatically about what volume they need, basically. I used to ride 85 liters. I've gone to 115 liters, and no issue with that.
Yeah.
So
one thing about the recessed deck, which I like it is a longer board than what I was used to, so it does track better, so it's not as easy to like make small adjustment before you start like giving it some power, and so I find myself kind of moving on my feet on the deck, whether I'm like wanting to adjust my angle or wanting to like go for it. And so the recessed deck kind of like gives me instant feedback of, if I move my foot and I start touching the where it starts going up toward the back, I know I'm good for like, fixing my angle. Yeah. And then boom, I go closer to the front when it's time to go. And it seems like, I don't know, maybe not as like important, but to me, that's an aspect that I really love about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Knowing where your foot are on the deck is pretty important for sure.
And I also, feel like sometime when you are like, which we've been like lately here, like working hard on the takeoff, like sometimes your feet kind of slide a bit forward just because you are kind of like relieving your weight, and so even if you have a grippy pad, you still gonna slowly make your way to the front, and having that edge is just also giving you an extra like thing that you can put more pressure on, and you're not going to go any further forward than that.
Exactly. I like that. Other good aspect of it is obviously the extra volume that you get on the tail and on the nose of the board is going to prevent it from nose diving, basically on the nose when you're popping up into something a bit steeper, but also it increases the power of the tail, and when you're catching a bump, basically there's almost as much push from the bump itself into the tail. That's why you want this extra volume to make sure that the tail is gonna help to push, basically, and push you into the further down into the bump. So that's gonna help also quite a bit. So there's extra bonuses, I would say, in a lot of ways with this kind of shape.
Yeah. Sure. Well, and maybe we can talk about like a bit of like the rocker line and explain like what it does. Yeah, the benefit of it.
So basically, there's a pretty generous rocker line, especially behind the foil, to make sure actually it's going to put the tail of the board basically into the bump, instead of having a tail of a board that would be into it basically with a bit of water on top of it. So you want the water to be pretty much only under the tail, and for the rest of the board is a pretty pretty moderate worker, I would say, and to make sure that it's going to be super efficient either for flat water start, but also into those pretty flat bumps, but still forgiving enough to be able to go into those steeper bumps. And one really important aspect about all those boards is like the construction, and to make sure that it's going to feel rigid and it's going to feel alive, basically. Longer boards, if they get a tiny bit too soft into their construction, you're going to feel their weight and you're going to feel their momentum also in a wrong way, I would say, in a bad way. So the rigidity of the board is pretty important, and the longer they are, the more it's important to have them light and rigid also.
Well, it's for sure it's going to help with just direct feedback. There is no delay, so in your pumping you can be more efficient because you are not like wasting your energy flexing the board basically, and then that flex is absorbing some of your pressure, so now like only 80% of your work is going into pumping. In this case, I really feel like with the Blackbird, it's so direct that 100% of your effort is going straight into your pumping. It makes it a lot more efficient. Yeah.
Great for the turning also, actually, because the amount of precision that you get from your foil, it's going to be great for turning. And I think a lot of people would be surprised by how well those boards turn, actually, because the fact that the foil box are pretty far forward on it, you end up having not that much of a longer board in the feeling, because your feet position to the nose, to the end of the nose, is actually not that long.
I mean, like a lot of people going into downwinding come from winging, and if you think about an 8-foot board winging, you would think like it's terrible.
Yeah.
And it's not, like it's so crazy, and that's also why it took so long for the foil spur to get back into long boards, because the belief was for foiling you need a short board.
Yeah, exactly.
And that kind of like was like flipped upside down when we were able to make long boards with the foil box closer to the center, and all of a sudden it feels like you are riding a 5-foot board.
Yeah.
Another
factor is the narrowness of those boards are making them actually really maneuverable for two reasons. First of all, the swing weight, because of the foil position, makes them pretty alive, but also the fact that those boards are pretty narrow, you're going to be able to be on the rail without having the rail touching the water, even if you're using some moderate size of mast. So that's a big factor also for how fun those boards are going to be to ride. And if the Blackbird, even in the smaller size, were already really successful, is because of that, because people quickly understand that even if they are a tiny bit longer than some of the regular wingboards, they are also narrower, and if they are narrower, you could put more angle into your wave riding without making the rail touch and those kind of things. So it's actually much more interesting than what people would think before they try them.
Yeah, like also talking about the construction, something that I feel like I hear quite a bit, people asking, and it's normal, you pay for a board, you want it to last. What about durability, and where is the board made? I think that's also important to mention.
So basically, absolutely. I forgot to mention that all the boards from the AFS Advanced range are made into our home factory in France. So that's huge, because quality control, obviously, and the quality of the structure of the board and everything is going to be obviously taken care of. And basically in all those Blackbird, there's a double carbon stringer into the foam around the deck area, as much as the whole cover up of carbon, full carbon obviously, on it. Regarding the weight of the board, we've been working to trying to find the best balance between great durability to any kind of impact with the paddle and stuff like that. So we're a tiny bit below 6 kilo for most of the sizes. I think I could give you more details on that, actually. So basically we are between 5 kilo 7 and 6 kilo 2, 6 kilo 5 for the 140 liters So it's pretty light. We could have gone lighter than that, but at some point you want to keep the rigidity as perfect as possible, and you would lose a bit of rigidity if you go further down in weight in a way. So we ready to find this nice balance, and I think we got it with this one.
Yeah. So I mean, essentially, I would say if durability is a factor for you, that's very important, and I think for most people it is. You can't go wrong with the Blackbird.
For sure. And if there is any impact that you do, whatever, for any crazy crash or whatever, still pretty easy to repair anyway. But for sure, they will last. I have no doubt about it. We've been using them for quite a while now, and we know that for a fact. So
then, the fact that the bird comes in white and in black, again, in terms of durability, I know like there's tons of like people. I picked the Blackbird, and I live in Florida. It's sunny. It's not like I was in Brittany. It's raining all the time.
Don't say that.
And it's I grew up in Brittany. That's why I try to escape for the sun. But even with me living in a sunny spot, I have no issue with the Blackbird. But maybe we can address some of that.
Yeah, I guess it's personal preference. As much as the size is actually of the board, that a lot of guys of the same weight would be likely to choose pretty much any of the range without any issue, because they're all going to have enough liters basically to make sure that their weight is going to be covered by the size of the board. But still, if you want to make it easier for you, you go higher volume and stuff like that. And for obviously the color of the board, as you just said, it's going to be personal preference. Some guys are skeptical on the durability of blackboards into those warm countries. They are fine most of the time. Still, the white ones are beautiful, and I look forward to add one actually. So matter of choice.
So another thing that I get asked is, what about the bottom? How was the decision for the bottom? How was it made? Because basically, when you look at all of the downwind birds, you always have different aspects, whether it's going to be really round in the bottom, whether it's going to be really flat in the bottom, whether it's going to have sharp edges or round edges. So maybe we can go over the reason of how you guys ended up with the...
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so the bottom was it's always a bit of a compromise. You want to have a good compromise between stability and touchdown tolerance, and also for the extra glide that some bottom would give you instead of stability, basically. So it's kind of a trade-off, and we've chosen the right in between, with a softer rail, but with a bottom, semi-flat bottom, I would say, in the middle at least. And I think it's the best balance for me between stability and forgiveness. Forgiveness to make sure that this stability that you need to be able to pop up nice and clean, you won't also the counterpart that with a board that's not going to make you fall every time you touch down, basically. Otherwise, you're going to end up like starting again, and you're going to need some skills and some physical capabilities for that to start again at any small mistake. So those boards has been thought to be as forgiving as possible into the ride, into the touchdown aspect of it, and for two reasons. First of all, this forgiveness is interesting for anybody who's going to be a beginner or even a pro who doesn't want to fall because he's going to be racing or whatever, but also for somebody who's going to be mainly free riding and want to push his turn as much as possible. He wants something that's going to give enough forgiveness to make sure that it's not going to fall every time he pushes, basically. Otherwise, he's going to stop pushing because he's going to be tired of starting again. So that's why it's pretty important to keep all those factors in line, to make sure that it's the right amount of stability for sure, but also the right amount of forgiveness and precision to the foil to make sure that the whole flying experience is going to be great.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, I went from like a 19-inch wide bird to the 18, and I didn't feel like it was more unstable. I feel like it's the same thing. None of the downwind birds are like ultra stable. Exactly. You have to learn the technique. And once you have that technique, to me, it's like that 18-inch wide bird didn't feel like it was any different than a 19. Yet you can really feel the added efficiency.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's like, you know, get your technique dial to stay on the bird using your paddle, and then you will be able to have a narrow burn that's gonna have like a lot more speed when you are in the water.
Absolutely. And also another part about the bottom for those two new sizes, we've done a bit of a cut into the foil box area to make sure that it's going to decrease the drag of the plate, and also to make sure that all those boards are going to have the foil box at 0 degree, to make sure that for the setup for any foil on the market, it's going to be suitable to. You couldn't use a Blackbird with any foil on the market right now.
And actually, a question that I get often is the foil track. Is it in the right spot? Does it accommodate for most foils on the market? So we can address that.
Yes, it does. Yeah. So I think a few people were concerned that the foil box would be a bit too far back. I think I've heard that some other board brands and stuff like that. And we've tried the board actually with a couple of foil brands to make sure that any kind of setup would be suitable on the board. And so far, it's been great for all the setup that I've tried. So we will have anyway in a couple of weeks a version with a longer box available also. So those longer box most of the time has a tiny bit of weight because those boxes are a bit heavier, obviously. Plus the reinforcement is a bit heavier also around the box. So it's kind of a trade-off. And if you are happy with the shorter box and if it does fit your foil, it's actually perfect. And from what I know, there's no issue with the shorter box at the moment. With the positioning that we've got, there's no issue.
Yeah. I mean, I think there are maybe just like a few foils that are like foil brands that are different from the rest, but for the most part, most foils go about the same spot, you know, more or less. So I have not had any issue with that, with the placement, and so
cool. What else? So just a quick question we got every now and again, like those longer boards that were not thought for winging or whatever, they still works great for winging. As a lot of people, I think you the first, actually, you've been winging quite a lot of those longer boards. They work fine. So even though we push on the fact that they are absolutely machines for downwinding, they still work as hybrid, if you like, even though we don't consider them as hybrid as shorter downwind boards. So that's the main thing about that. Some people will think that 8.0 is too long or 7.6 is too long for their winging, and some people are winging some 9.0s without any issue. So it's just a matter of preference, and there's no limitation basically. Yeah, it's whatever you like.
Yeah. No, to me, I mean, I really like. I've been riding downwind birds for winging more and more, just because they turn great. I mean, like when you downwind, like you downwind subfoil and you look at the good guys, they make it turn really good. So if the bird doesn't turn good, often it's the rider, not the bird. And so then you are using a tool that with winging allows you to ride a much smaller wing. I like to ride underpower more than overpower, just because it feels better when you ride. You can get less injured, less tired, and if you ride a wave, you are just flagging out a smaller wing, which that's just a win. So like the long birds are just going to give you so much efficiency, going to allow you to ride such a small wing. And once
small foil also.
Yeah, small foils as well. So then once you get used to that, it's kind of hard to go back to a wingboard.
I agree. Yeah, those compact boards after are still going to be good, obviously, for those guys jumping and those stronger winds or things like that. But it's good. It's good to try everything, I guess. And we had a few questions also of the comparison between whitebird and blackbirds. So the whitebird, the goal was actually to trying to make them still high performance and still as hybrid as it gets, especially with the 6.6 and 6.0. And that would try to push a tiny bit further the accessibility, even on those hybrid smaller models, I would say. So basically those boards have a bit of extra volume compared to their sisters into the Blackbird range. And this extra volume allows it to be ridden by heavier riders, or lighter riders will find it a tiny bit even more efficient actually to be able to pop up. For example, the 6.6 is a little sister of the 6.2 Blackbird, and it's 100 liters instead of 90 liters for the 6.2 Blackbirds with the same width. And same for the 6.8 Whitebird, it's 150 liters compared to the 110 liters of the 6.4 Blackbird. So those two Whitebirds are going to be a bit higher volume, a bit higher on the water, and a bit more stable in a way, especially for riders which are going to be a tiny bit heavier and that still want to use it for winging and things like that. But they pretty much do the same job as a Blackbird. The Blackbird 6.2 and 6.4 are a tiny bit thinner, that's why they have less volume obviously. And but apart from that, they will do pretty much the same job, and with a tiny bit more stability on the Whitebird. But the gap in stabilities, as you were saying, Gwen, it's not huge after a certain point, and it's more the type of spot and water that you're going to ride in that's going to make it more or less challenging than really the board itself. If you're going to really challenging downwinding condition, super bumpy or whatever, you could put a school board on the water, it's still going to be not that easy anyway.
That's exactly how I felt today.
Exactly. So conditions are going to be a key factor, and you guys, I'm sure will have some good guys around you to make sure that they will push you into the right condition to make it successful as soon as possible. And so basically, just to wrap up on the board choices, I think it's pretty open since most brands are pushing higher volume boards. There's a lot of choice, and I've been Gwen, you're not that heavy either. How heavy are you?
73 kilos.
Okay, I'm about the same, and we ride some pretty high volume board compared to what we thought we would have rode a couple of years ago, and there's a reason why for that. So basically looking for accessibility when you could chase some, and if I was any customer a bit heavier than us, I would go straight away with higher volume board, because you're not going to sacrifice any performance out of it. You should think with a generous volume, it's going to be helping the whole physicality of it, and you will have plenty of time to jump into a smaller volume board. I've been riding a 140 liters recently. It felt totally fine. More fine than some of the old school board that I used to ride, which were way thicker actually, even though they were lower volume. So that's kind of a weird one, because you end up like riding some 140 liters which are thin like that around your feet. So the foil feel is absolutely perfect. So
everybody's gonna make the same mistake, that like everybody does the same mistake winging, is always trying to go smaller and smaller. And I would say, I mean, if anything, downwind subfoiling is definitely challenging, regardless of your skill level at any other sport. So you can be the king at wingfoiling, you're gonna go through the struggle downwind subfoiling.
You want to help yourself with the right gear and the right condition, because it could also be a sport that it's going to be. It will be challenging in a way, but not as challenging as some people would think if they reach the good condition and with the right gear and the right strategy, I was going to say.
So, what would you say in terms of like when you want to pick the Blackbird, the 7.6 or the 8.0? how are you going to pick depending on who you are like looking for a bond?
Yeah, so basically I think there's some guys which are looking for something more compact for specific reasons or whatever. Could be the car size or whatever. As simple as that. I think even here in Guadeloupe, like if I would have a swap with the for 7.6 instead of my 8.0, I would have been fine with that also. So there's just a matter of preference basically, because they're pretty similar volumes and pretty similar compartment basically. So if I was somebody really into foil racing, downwind racing, obviously I would go probably longer and narrower, so the 8.018. For somebody who's going to be free riding into a place where the pop-up is not that challenging, because either pretty strong wind or great bumps to pop up, maybe I would go for the 7.6 instead of the 8.0. Even though I've got plenty of friends and customers that have done the invert choice and they are more than happy with it. So personal preference comes into play now, because the range is wide enough with enough comfortable volume to make sure that a lot of people could pick their own board and do their own choice between all those different length and width also.
Is there one bond that would be easier for somebody that's gonna get into downwind subfoiling? They have foiling experience, wing foiling. They are probably about 80 kilos. Which would be probably the easiest for somebody to get into it?
I guess I would say 8.0 by 22, and I would not be shy on going to this one straight away. Pretty much, even if it's 140 liters, it's full carbon, still super light, super rigid. It's not a board that's going to get in the way. If you compare it to any size of surfboard, as a comparison, it's pretty much the same width of a longboard, and so shorter than a longboard also. So it's not that big in a way. It's just the higher volume that would make it think that it's big. But the fact that the recessed deck that puts your feet close to the water makes it like great feeling. And it's not going to get in the way. You could put somebody good at downwinding on this board. It's not going to feel like his board is huge. Absolutely not. That's the crazy part of it, actually.
So would a beginner be right to think that 22 is too narrow, I'm not going to be able to stand on it, I'm going to go for like a 24 wide bond?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the trick, like searching for efficiency. So it's basically trading efficiency to stability. Either you choose one or you choose the other one. That's the right in between. I think 22 is the right in between. As we were saying before, even a school board, which are going to be 30 inches wide, is not going to be that stable anyway into some of those downwinding environments. So the stability is going to come from your paddle technique, how you put your paddle in the water. That's going to help dramatically on the balance. And that's going to come also from the foil that you put in the water. When you're beginner, you're putting most of the time a bigger foil. That's going to have more span, more surface area. That's going to increase the stability. So don't focus too much on the narrowness of the board. That could be something that people would be afraid of, because if we made those choices, it's because it's going to be easier to pop up a 22-inch or 23-inch than to pop up a 25-inch wide board. That's the drag that's going to be created by a wider board, and we knew that since day one. And it's huge. So you basically need way more power and way more physicality to be able to pop up some wider boards than some narrow boards.
Yeah, so how we could make a comparison is, somebody wants to learn how to foil. Is it really going to be easier if we put them on a 3,000 square centimeters or not? There is a point where it doesn't get easier anymore.
It gets more challenging, I would say.
So that's that point where I feel like anything more than maybe 22, you think it's going to get easier, but it's not, because maybe you have an easier time slightly standing on the board, but it reduces your chance of getting up drastically. Yeah. And so now you are just drifting around trying to paddle, and you maybe spend more time on your feet, but you don't spend any time on your foil.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a good way to think about it. Wider is not always going to be easier. The same as a bigger foil is not always going to be the easiest. Somebody asked a question, which bird would you pick, which bird would be the best for wing foiling? The widest or the longest?
I guess depend on your weight and your skills, I would say, and on the condition that you're going to find. If you're riding into super light wind, like pretty much challenging to be able to pop up for anybody, I guess I would go on longer now, the board that we ride right now.
Yeah, because often that means if it's super light, your water is not usually going to be as choppy, so
exactly.
you can go longer, you can go narrower, and you need that efficiency. But then if you go into like moderate wind, where you're going to have a bit more chop, then you might want to go a bit shorter and a bit wider, because anyway you have more wind, you have more power, you don't need to be as efficient. So it's really about skill level, for sure, because I always I have people reaching out to me, they want to get into wing foiling, but they live in a very light wind area. Should they go for a downwind burn? And probably not, because trying to learn everything together is going to be very, very challenging. Light wind requires more technique anyway, so you have to make your way up to it. It kind of depends also on the condition that you are going to pick. And again, it's exactly like choosing a foil. You can't have it all, so you have to pick something that's going to be good for mostly something, and then going to be okay for other things.
Exactly.
And that's, I know nobody wants to make compromise. Everybody wants, like, I want one burn, one foil, and that's going to be great in all conditions. And it cannot be the best at everything. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's why that's a great point actually, because I would say that if your main goal is winging into light wind and things like that, there's not much point having the longest and the narrowest board and everything, except if you are into those exceptionally light condition, or you're long or whatever. And if I was a winger only, that I want something super efficient, I would go into the smaller Blackbird range, 6.4 and 6.2, and those ones are not going to get in the way at all. They're great for wave riding also, even though if the wind is picking up or whatever, they don't get in the way. But for somebody, let's say, who's into downwinding and wings also, obviously maybe he's not going to buy 3 boards or whatever, 3 of those type of board, and I'm more than happy to wing with my 8.0 or 7.6 or whatever, if I don't have a shorter board option, I would say. But for somebody who's only into winging, I guess Whitebird and Blackbird into those smaller sizes, they've been made for that, those downwinding compact shape basically. And for those guys which are willing to go into downwinding, you might as well go a bit longer, I guess, and wing with it every now and again.
All right, well, I think that's about it for today. Unless you guys have more questions, feel free to ask. At 93 kilo, the question, he added his weight for the best burn for wing foiling at 93 kilos.
Hey, 93 kilo is actually fine on the 6.4 Blackbird, also on 7.6.
I mean, it's still a tricky question. I have plenty of people that reach out to me and tell me their weight, their height, and skills.
Yeah, skills, obviously.
Skills is a big part of it. So you always have to ask, can you foil? Can you jibe? Trying to dial in what is your skill level, because it's that plays a huge role into getting the right burn. So I would say best you can do is reach out to your local dealer. They know you're gonna have a chat with them. They know your conditions, where you ride. You tell them your level, what you are looking for, and they will be the best.
And foil size also, things like that. Yeah, basically, the rest of your gear that you're riding is gonna have a big influence on the board choice also.
Yeah. All right. Well.
Great, Gwen. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, and good luck tomorrow.
You too.
We are going to do the Z-Race in Guadeloupe, and we are both going with the same setup, the 8.0 by 18 Blackbird and the 1100 Pure.
Yeah, that's going to be a great event. We haven't done the whole run yet, so we pretty much have to we're gonna have to go on the way tomorrow and trying to find the best way to do. Okay, that's gonna be a challenging one, but it's gonna be a fun one. And so far, it's been a great organization. So thanks to them, and we look forward to chat with you again, guys.
All right, thank you so much.
Cheers.
See you guys.